Now we're going to be working on the second part of the lesson in 7.3, and we're going to be working on exponential functions. So let's go ahead and zoom into number 5, which is the parent exponential function in this problem, 2 to the power x. Now, if you remember that log and exponential functions are inverse to each other. So if the logarithmic functions had a vertical asymptote, the exponential function would have a horizontal one. So they are inverse to each other. Now, before x equals h was my vertical asymptote. Over here, y equal k would be my horizontal asymptote. Now, the general transformed form is going to be y equals a times 2 to the power x minus h plus k. So as you can see, h is going to be the number in the exponent next to the x, and the k is going to be the number on the outside. The a is going to be the number multiplied by 2, okay? Now let's look at the first one. I do not see a k, so the k in this case is a 0, so y equals 0 would be my horizontal asymptote, okay? Now in order to get points, you can just plug in points like 0 if x is 0. 2 to the power 0 would be 1. If you plug in 1, 2 to the power 1 would be 2. If you plug in 2, 2 to the power 2 would be 4. We can just go to your calculator, go to your y1 and put 2 to the power x and graph it. There you go. That's my graph having a horizontal asymptote. Now again, the graph on the calculator is a little bit misleading. It looks here as if it's actually going or passing through the, or maybe it's on the horizontal asymptote, but it's not. It should be a little bit higher. So keep that in mind, that your graph should never touch the horizontal asymptote. Now to know where the horizontal asymptote is, if you go to the second table and you try to go up in your table, you're going to see that your y is now horizontal asymptote, so y equals, your number is getting so small. Remember the scientific notation, e to the power negative 4, it means 0.00098, for example. So then the number is getting smaller and smaller, but it will never be 0, okay? That's what, or how you can tell from the calculator that y equals 0 is going to be your horizontal asymptote. Now let's go ahead and try to find some pretty points like 0, 1, 1, 2, and 2, 4. This is what we got. So let's go ahead and plot them. Let's go to our parent graph. Y equals 0 is going to be my horizontal asymptote, so let's represent that with a dotted line. The points are 0, 1, 1, 2, and 2, 4. To graph this, you start like a little bit above the horizontal asymptote and you go up through the points, and that will be your graph, okay? So as you can see, it's never going to touch the horizontal asymptote. Now the domain will be from negative infinity to infinity because it's going, stretching all the way to the left, is stretching all the way to the right. So my domain would be negative infinity to infinity. However, the range, it's not going to go below the horizontal asymptote, so it's not going to get over here. So my range is going to be from the asymptote and above. As you can see, it's above the asymptote. So my domain would be negative infinity to infinity in this case. It's inverse of the logarithmic, and the range is going to be from the asymptote, not included, that's why we have parentheses, to infinity, because it's above the asymptote. Now I would like you to pause the video and try number 6 on your own. Now in number 6, you will see that it's 2 times 2 to the power x plus 1. So I can tell that my a is a 2. I do not have a number in the exponent next to the x, so my h is 0, and my k is 1. So I can directly tell that y equals 1 is my horizontal asymptote. It's the k, the number on the outside. Now I can safely say that my domain is going to be from negative infinity to infinity, always. My range, since the a is positive, is going to be from the asymptote to infinity, but we're going to double check that in a minute. So let's go ahead and put this in our calculator. So it's going to be 2 times, so let me clear that. It's going to be 2 times 2 to the power x, and move over. This plus 1 is not in the exponent. Now let's graph it. There you go. As you can see, it looks like it's on the horizontal asymptote, but it's not. So let's go to our table to get some pretty points to be able to graph this exponential function. So some of the pretty points are -1, 2. And another one is 0, 3, 1, 5, and so on. Cross the rest. Now go ahead and graph this on the, I'm sorry, I'm not seeing that, okay. Now y=1 would be my horizontal asymptote, and my pretty points are going to be -1, 2. Oh, I missed that. It's -1, 2. And then I have a 0, 3, and 1, 5. And again, my graph is going to be so close above the asymptote, going through the 3 points and going up. So as we see, the domain is going to be from the left to the right, -infinity to +infinity, and the range is going to be above the asymptote, so from 1 to +infinity. Now let's talk about the transformation. A is 2, so this is going to be a stretched graph. H is 0, so it's not going to affect my transformation. K is 1, it means my graph went up 1. Now let's move on to number 7. -2 to the power x plus 3 minus 5. So I can see I have an A, which is a negative. So let's see how this is going to affect my graph. My H is going to be a -3, so I'm taking always the opposite of the number in the exponent, and the K is -5. So then my y=-5 would be my horizontal asymptote. Okay, I'm not going to write the domain and range now because I want to see how this is going to look since A is negative, and then we can decide what the domain and range are. So let's go to y= and put in the graph. So it's going to be a negative, not a minus, a -2 to the power x plus 3. So my horizontal asymptote is a -3, and then -5. Let's graph it, and that's my graph. Do you see how it's being reflected? It's starting from below the horizontal asymptote and going down because the A is negative. So let's see some couple of points for me to be able to graph it. Some pretty points. So -3, -6 would be a pretty point to use. It will fit in my graph. -2, -7, and -1, -9. So let's go ahead. My horizontal asymptote is y=-5. I'm going to use a blue one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's going to be my horizontal asymptote. And since the A is negative, I expect my graph to be below. So my first point is -1, -9. There you go. And the other point is -2, -7. And then the third one is -3, -6. So as you can see how the graph is going down? So starting below the horizontal asymptote and going down. And that would be my graph. Now, the domain is not going to change. It's always going to be from -infinity to +infinity, okay? Because this is going to extend and go on to the right. But the range is going to change. It's not above the asymptote anymore, it's below. So as you can see, it's going down to -infinity. So basically the range would be from -infinity to the asymptote. So let's go ahead and write that down. My domain is going to be from -infinity to infinity. It's not going to change. But my range now is going to be from -infinity to the asymptote because it's below the asymptote now. So as you can see, it was reflected. Now it's below the asymptote because the A is negative. It went left 3 and down 5. Now pause the video and try number 8 on your own. Now if you look at this problem, I do not have an A, but H is 1 and K is 4. So it's going to go right 1 and up 4. The asymptote is going to be the K, so y=4 is going to be my horizontal asymptote. Since A is positive, my domain is always going to be from -infinity to infinity, but my range is going to be from the asymptote to infinity. So it's going to be above the asymptote. Now let's go ahead and plot it. So let's clear that. It's going to be 2 to the power x minus 1, and then plus 4. Oh, see how I didn't move over? Just delete that. So let me move over. There you go, +4. Let's get some pretty points. Graph it. There you go. It's above the asymptote going to infinity. Now let's go to the table and get some pretty points. Okay, so my first pretty point, did I press graph again? Second graph, so that's my pretty point is going to be 1, 5, 2, 6, and I think 2 numbers are enough. 2 points are enough. So I'm going to choose a different color, let's say black, and my horizontal asymptote was a 4, so I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, so here. So y equals 4 would be my horizontal asymptote. 2, 6 would be my first point, and my second point would be 1, 5. So my graph is going to be above the asymptote going through the 2 points, and that would be my graph. Oh, sorry, you weren't seeing that. Okay, sorry about that. So my graph is going to be above the asymptote, as you can see. So I hope this tutorial was helpful. Please do the practice sheet to make sure that you understand the material.